Remember that feeling when you walked into Costco, grabbed your favorite Kirkland product, and knew exactly what it would cost? Sadly, those days are gone. In just a few short months, the prices of 8 Kirkland-branded foods have nearly doubled, enough to make even the most loyal shoppers hesitate. Olive oil, salmon, almond butter. The kitchen staples you thought you could always count on have now become a test of every family's budget. The reason? Retaliatory tariffs from America's trade partners triggered by President Trump's tariff policies. This trade war is no longer an abstract headline. It's shaping the very meals Americans put on the table. But Costco isn't waving the white flag. They've been quietly fighting back. And in today's list, you'll see exactly which products are disappearing from your cart. And why. Don't look away. The 5th item on this list might make you genuinely worried about your family's next dinner. Number 1. Ground beef patties. Summer is the season of backyard cookouts. The laughter of kids playing outside, the smell of sizzling beef drifting through the neighborhood. But for many American families, especially those who've long relied on Kirkland ground beef patties from Costco this summer, doesn't taste quite the same. In just 3 months, the price of a 40-count box of frozen beef patties has jumped from about $35.99 to over $50. This isn't just a seasonal bump. It's happening at the very moment people were hoping food prices might finally settle down after the relentless inflation of 2024. Instead, new tariffs from the Trump administration targeting Canada, America's main supplier of frozen beef, have delivered a 1-2 punch: higher import costs and a tighter supply chain. If you've ever thought of a box of beef patties as just another grocery item, think again. This is the staple for millions of family dinners, the star of Sunday BBQ traditions, and a high-protein, budget-friendly option that middle-income households depend on. When prices spike like this, it's not just wallets that feel the hit. Families are cutting back on cookouts, shrinking portion sizes, or switching to cheaper, lower-quality ground meat. Worse yet, some seniors admit they're simply eating less, saying they don't want to be a burden with higher food costs. Can you even remember the last time you hosted a full no-compromise BBQ? What's more troubling is this. Beef prices haven't peaked yet. Food analysts at Rabobank warn that if trade tensions keep rising, key protein items like beef could all but vanish from store shelves by the holiday season. Costco, famous for its big value-packed meat deals, is now stuck between 2 tough choices: hold prices and take the loss, or raise prices and risk losing customer loyalty. In the case of ground beef patties, they chose the latter, which leaves us with a bigger question. Are other essential grocery items headed down the same road? We'll get into that in the next section, where a familiar comfort food tied to childhood memories is quietly disappearing from the family table. Number 2. Lunch meat variety pack. It's the kind of product that quietly lives in your shopping routine. Lunch meat, the unglamorous, uncelebrated staple of millions of midday meals. For years, Kirkland's lunch meat variety pack was the default choice. 3 kinds of meat, neatly packaged, nutritionally balanced, and wallet-friendly. But that's over now. Not because tastes have changed, because prices have, and far too quickly. In less than 4 months, this product's price has leapt from $12.99 to nearly $25. No warning, no limited time discount to soften the blow, just a cold, hard new number staring at you from the shelf. Shoppers didn't rage at Costco on the spot. They hesitated, picked it up, put it back down, and moved on. But then, that hesitation became a pattern. The lunch meat pack quietly disappeared from carts. Not because of quality, but because of that creeping feeling of being forced to accept something you didn't choose. This spike didn't happen in a vacuum. Since May, retaliatory tariffs between the US and processed meat exporters, especially Canada and Mexico, have sent import prices soaring. Higher input costs disrupted supply chains, and Kirkland simply couldn't keep prices down without taking a heavy loss. And now with the latest tariffs in effect, one has to wonder, how much worse could it get? This is no longer just a pack of cold cuts. It's the clearest sign yet that decisions made in Washington are flowing straight into American shopping carts, without Congress, without a vote. Plenty of shoppers are starting to ask if even a basic item like lunch meat can't hold its price what's left to give us any sense of control over our daily spending. But this isn't necessarily the end of the road. Consumers are pushing back. Not with words, but with choices. They're skipping it entirely, switching to fresh cuts portioned and frozen at home, teaming up for bulk buys that bypass brand labels. Some are even making their own lunch meat, not out of passion, but because they no longer trust the stability of once familiar products. Costco sees this, and according to some internal whispers, they're quietly testing a US-sourced lunch meat line, less convenient but nearly 30% cheaper. The question now isn't, when will prices drop, but rather, will shoppers give up convenience to take back control of what's in their cart? A pack of lunch meat used to be a symbol of convenience. Now it's proof of a quiet but profound shift in how Americans think about their rights as consumers. And if something as simple as lunch meat can shake that trust, the next item on our list will make you wonder, can anything still keep its true taste anymore, even coffee? Number 3. Dark roast coffee. Not everyone eats cold cuts, but almost nobody starts the day without coffee. And if there's one product that's been the go-to for middle-aged folks, retirees, night shift workers, and office employees alike, it's this Kirkland Signature dark roast coffee. A hefty 3-pound, 1.36 kilograms can for just $11.99. Rich, bold, and enough to brew for an entire month. No other brand in its price range could come close. At least not until May. That month when trade tensions between the US and South America, especially Brazil and Colombia, flared up after the US imposed steel tariffs. Something no one saw coming happened. The price of roasted coffee at Costco doubled in just 3 months. That's because more than 70% of the raw beans used for Kirkland's dark roast come from those very countries. Once the coffee supply chain hit turbulence, shipping costs surged and retaliatory tariffs kicked in. Production costs blew past the breaking point. And one day, shoppers came back to their usual aisle only to find the price tag now read $22.89. The first reaction wasn't anger, it was disbelief. Many stood frozen in front of the shelf, reading and rereading the label, thinking their eyes were playing tricks on them. But it wasn't a printing error, it was a very real sign that the stability of a familiar comfort had quietly been taken away. Coffee isn't a luxury item. For many older Americans, it's a ritual. It's what keeps them alert. It's a small joy every morning. And when coffee prices spike like that, it's not just irritating. It hits something deeper, stirring the uneasy feeling that life itself is slipping out of their control. Costco didn't rush to react. They knew Kirkland Dark Roast wasn't just a product. It was an icon. But with tariff pressure mounting and supply chains tightening, they had only one option: cut promotions and raise the price. Yet a quiet shift began taking shape. Customers started buying whole beans to grind at home, or teaming up to split bulk purchases. Some even began hunting for deals from smaller brands, willing to experiment in ways they'd once avoided. Maybe Kirkland Dark Roast will reclaim its place if the tariff war cools down. But for now, people are finding their own way forward. They're not waiting around anymore. Number 4. Guatemalan whole bean coffee. After Kirkland's Dark Roast went up in price, many shoppers turned to another option: Guatemalan whole bean coffee. It cost a bit more, but at least it kept its quality, that signature aroma, and, most importantly, a sense of control. One pure, comforting cup every morning. That was their way of not being swallowed up by the chaos outside. But that sense of safety lasted only a few weeks. By mid-May, Costco quietly raised the price of Guatemalan whole bean to over $26, nearly double. No banner, no email alert. People only realized it when they stood in front of the coffee shelf and saw they no longer had a fallback. Unlike the dark roast, the Guatemalan beans come straight from Guatemala, a country now facing US tariffs for political reasons. The result: containers stuck in ports, delayed shipments, higher costs, and Kirkland, left with no other choice, passed it all down to the price tag. The issue wasn't just a few extra dollars, it was the breaking point. You'd already let go of your usual coffee to hold on to what you truly loved, and now, even that backup plan was gone. No options, no way out. That helplessness didn't just leave people disappointed. It shook their belief that they could keep holding on. And if coffee, just a small corner of your budget, could turn things upside down like this, you'd better brace yourself for what's next. Because it's not something you want, but something you use every single day. Kirkland olive oil. That's quietly bleeding your kitchen dry. Still think this is just about prices? Part 5 will show you the American family dinner table has become a battlefield. Number 5. Olive oil. A few years ago, there was one thing that made middle-aged American consumers feel like they could still win against the market: Costco's Kirkland olive oil. While food prices everywhere else were skyrocketing, this product stayed steady. Good quality, fair price, and absolute trust. It was a symbol of the feeling, at least there's still something I can control. By August 2025, that feeling was gone. The familiar bottle of olive oil had jumped from an average of $17 to nearly $34, doubling in just 4 months. No formal announcement, no warning. And this wasn't just a small financial sting. It was a blow to the psychological stability of shoppers who had been loyal to Costco for decades. In many households, olive oil isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. Not because of taste, but because of health. Seniors use it to replace saturated fats, support heart health, and manage cholesterol. Some can't even use cheaper oils for medical reasons. But now, when even a bottle of oil becomes something you have to think twice about, many are being forced to change habits, despite the risks. You won't see the kind of public outrage that comes when gas prices spike. But this change is slower, deeper, and far more destructive. Because this isn't something you use once in a while. It's tied to every meal of the day, from morning eggs to lunchtime greens to evening stews. When every drop has to be measured, the rhythm of family life shifts with it. Some families have stopped using olive oil altogether, switching to vegetable oil. But that decision isn't as simple as swapping laundry detergent brands. It can raise cholesterol levels, spark debates between generations, and blur the line between eating enough and eating right. More and more people now bring their own bottle of olive oil when eating with their kids or relatives, because splitting one bottle doesn't make sense anymore. In the kitchen, the bottle that used to sit by the stove is now tucked away in a cupboard. Before pouring, people hesitate. They pour less. And sometimes, they skip it entirely. That's the moment you realize you're no longer a free consumer. You're being steered. You're reacting instead of choosing. Experts will cite a list of reasons: drought in Spain, a weak euro shipping crises. But to the average American, there's only one truth. They're the ones absorbing every risk while everyone else seems immune. And what makes the frustration even sharper? No one apologizes, no one explains, no one defends them. A product that once stood for reason, balance, and trustworthiness has become proof of what it feels like to be abandoned in your own kitchen. You can cut back on dining out. You can skip buying new clothes. But when even a simple homemade salad becomes something you have to think twice about, it's clear this system has crossed the line of basic decency. And if something this essential can be pushed up in price without restraint, what's going to happen to the little indulgences, the tiny treats that used to be the one way you could comfort yourself each day? The next part takes you to an item many people think of as harmless, sweet, and insignificant. But in reality, it's becoming the symbol of another kind of lost joy. Number 6. Chocolate almonds. No one ever thought they'd have to think twice about buying a jar of chocolate almonds. Because this isn't a necessity. It's a reward. It's what grown-ups give themselves after long days of stretching every dollar to cover bills, gas, medicine, and tuition. A small bit of sweetness, harmless to anyone. And just enough to remind you, you still deserve a little indulgence. But by August 2025, even that feeling of deserving had been quietly, coldly taken away. The Kirkland chocolate almonds, once one of Costco's best-selling products, had crossed the $21 mark, up from just $11 at the start of the year. And that wasn't just a price increase. It was a clear sign of something many Americans had long feared: you no longer have the right to treat yourself unless you're in the upper class. What happened? Part of it comes down to ingredients. Cocoa prices have surged worldwide as climate change slashed harvests in Ivory Coast and Ghana, two countries that supply over 60% of the world's cocoa. Almonds, meanwhile, have been hit by severe drought in California. Add in shipping, storage, and labor costs, and suddenly that jar of chocolate-covered almonds has become a premium item you have to think carefully about before dropping it into your cart. But the more telling part is the psychological effect. Many people have quietly taken this snack off their shopping list. No one makes a big declaration like "I'm never buying it again." They just start walking past the aisle without stopping. Or they stop, look, and shake their head. The feeling of treating yourself is replaced with second-guessing yourself. Should I really spend money on this? And the result, a silent loss. No outrage, no protest. Just a quiet retreat from one of the smallest joys you ever allowed yourself. And what's worse, you start to see it as normal. Because once you skip the chocolate, it becomes easier to skip the bubble tea, then the cafe coffee, then the weekend restaurant meal. Until finally you've withdrawn from every nice little moment and are living purely on minimum survival expenses. This is how the economy slowly erases the feeling of living like a human being. No force, no orders. Just making the things that used to be effortless slip out of reach. And it's cruelest for retirees, for elderly couples living off savings they've built over a lifetime. People who thought that after decades of work, at least, they could enjoy a few chocolates in the afternoon without worrying about the price. Sure, you can give up snacks, but can you bear standing in the store, looking at a jar of chocolate almonds, and feeling like it's no longer meant for you? That quiet question haunts many, because they know that if even a little treat becomes a worry, the essentials like bacon won't be safe for long. And they're right. The next item on the list is fully cooked bacon. A former point of pride in the American breakfast, now slowly being pushed off the table as a luxury. Number 7, fully cooked bacon. The sizzle in the frying pan, the smell of bacon drifting through the kitchen, for many Americans, especially those over 50. That's not just the smell of breakfast, it's the smell of memory, of Sunday mornings with family, of hot coffee, slightly burnt toast, and a few crispy strips of bacon nestled on the plate. But at Costco today, plenty of shoppers no longer head toward the bacon section. Not because they've lost their taste for it, but because a package of Kirkland fully cooked bacon has jumped nearly 90% in just 3 months. From a steady $13, it now sits at $24 in many areas, especially in states hit hardest by import tariffs and cross-country shipping costs. And what's angered many customers the most is that they never saw it coming. No warning signs, no bulletin explaining the change. Just one day you show up at your usual aisle and realize that something you thought of as part of the American identity has slipped out of reach. To younger shoppers, it might just be some cold cuts, but to many middle-class households, especially retired couples, bacon is the last little luxury they've kept in their breakfast after cutting back on everything else. And when even that gets taken away, it's not just loss people feel, it's disrespect. Sure, you can swap bacon for cheap sausages, but you can't replace the feeling of eating something you truly love, something you trust, something familiar, something Kirkland once promised would always be there at the best possible price. That trust has now been broken. Some people try to wait it out, hoping prices will drop. But after 2 months, they realize it's not dropping. It's settling in at its new normal, and you either get used to it or walk away. Others switch to quick cook bacon from other brands. But within weeks, many, especially older buyers, start noticing digestive issues. Not every replacement measures up to Kirkland's quality. And then you realize the real cost isn't the number on the price tag. It's the quality of your daily life. You can accept cutting back on gadgets, but when you have to remove a staple from your breakfast, something tied to your memories and your sense of stability, you don't just feel sad. You feel like you're living in a society where the past is quietly being rewritten by the present. And the scariest part, no one's promising it will stop here. If your bacon, the simplest of pleasures, can turn into a conditional luxury, what happens to the cheapest, most common, most innocent item on the list, bottled water? Number 8, sparkling water. What can a single bottle of water really say? For some, sparkling water is just a side indulgence, a lightly carbonated drink to swap in for soda or to add a little variety to the day. But at Costco, Kirkland's sparkling water used to be a middle-aged America favorite, cheap, pleasant-tasting, sugar-free, calorie-free, guilt-free. A choice that felt harmless. And yet, in recent months, that cheap and easy drink has turned into a symbol of helplessness. The price for a case of Kirkland sparkling water has shot up from $9.99 to $17.89, nearly double in just 3 months. And what many customers find hardest to believe is that they have no idea why. No water crisis, no nationwide drought, no shortage of ingredients. So how could water become expensive enough to make people hesitate? The answer isn't in the water, it's in the bottle. Supply chain reports show that the cost of producing aluminum cans and plastic packaging has surged thanks to a new wave of tariffs. The US is now imposing heavy taxes on metal imports from Canada, Mexico, and the EU, while those countries are hitting back by raising import tariffs on US-made packaged goods. The boomerang cost of moving products across borders has multiplied. In other words, we're paying the price for a trade war no one ever asked us about. For consumers, this isn't just sticker shock. It's the erosion of confidence in the small everyday choices that once helped them feel in control of their lives. Before, when everything else got expensive, they could still say, "At least I can pick up this case every week." Now even that is up for debate. So you start cutting back, buying less, switching to tap water. But slowly, the feeling creeps in, you're being pushed backward. Not because you can't afford it, but because you're no longer being allowed to choose. What makes it sting more is that sparkling water used to be a little gift for so many people. Seniors, diabetics, dieters. They couldn't drink soda, didn't care for plain water, but sparkling water was perfect. Light enough to enjoy, harmless enough to trust. And now, some rush to stock up before the next price hike. Others try cheaper brands, only to be let down by the taste. Some give it up entirely, crossing off a small ritual that once made their day just a little brighter. You might say it's just water. But by now you've seen the pattern, haven't you? Nothing is just anything anymore. Every price hike erases a corner of daily life. And when even your bottled water is at the mercy of policy and inflation, maybe what we're really losing isn't sparkling water at all. It's peace of mind, stability, and the feeling that at least one thing still belongs to you. But if nothing belongs to you anymore, then who is this system really working for? When Americans have to think twice about buying a bottle of water, a chocolate bar, or a few slices of bacon for breakfast, the problem isn't just economic. It's the quiet, steady removal of life's little pieces, things that used to be normal becoming luxuries. We're starting to accept it as the new normal. We didn't make this video to spread doom and gloom, but to point out a truth middle-class consumers. The people who keep America running are slowly being pushed out of the very spaces they built their lives around.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.